Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's eContent Roundtable web event brought to you by SendShare, Smartling, and Lionbridge. I'm Teresa Kramer, editor of eContent Magazine. I'll be the moderator for today's broadcast. Our presentation today is Challenges of Large-Scale Localization and Globalization Efforts. Before we get started, I need to explain to you how you can be a part of today's event. If you have a question during the presentation, just type it into the question box provided and click on the Submit button. We will try to get to as many questions as possible, but if your question has not been answered during the show, you will receive an email response within a few days. And now let me welcome Juliana Pereira, Senior Director of Marketing at Smartling.
Great. Good afternoon, or good morning to some. My name is Juliana Pereira, and I'm the Senior Director of Marketing at Smartling. And Smartling offers an end-to-end translation technology and language services solution. I'm going to talk a little bit today about the mobile future of globalized content, and we'll explore some mobile trends and talk about some best practices and considerations for where to start with mobile app localization. But first, let me give a quick introduction on Smartling and who we are. So Smartling was founded in 2009. We're headquartered in New York City with a few offices around the world. And our founders, Jack Weldy and Andre Axelrod, both recognize that translation is a growing requirement for companies with global aspirations. They also found that legacy methods weren't scalable due to the manual processes involved that slowed speed to market, lacked measurable translation quality, and just simply is too expensive. So they developed an innovative end-to-end localization solution combining a leading translation software and a network of professional translators. So at Smartling, we're committed to helping ambitious brands access new markets, more customers, and greater value through our translation solution. And these here are a few examples of global brands that are already translating multilingual content in the Smartling platform every day. So let's talk about mobile. I wanted to start off with this quote. Many of you might already be familiar with this one from Larry Page, co-founder, president of Google, saying, "We are no longer living in a mobile-first world. We are in a mobile-only world." So at the time, his words may have seemed a bit extreme, but there's certainly some truth behind it because we know that mobile matters. And let's look at some recent stats that show how important mobile is and is becoming. So mobile app downloads are growing and increased by 15% year over year from 2015 to 2016. Time spent in apps by users is also growing, and this increased by 25% year over year. Additionally, increased revenue paid out to publishers increased year over year by 40%. And finally, the total time spent in apps worldwide, so this is an aggregate of everyone using mobile apps, this increased by 21% year over year, and by the end of 2016, there were roughly 900 billion hours of total time spent in mobile apps worldwide. And this is simply staggering. And it also shows that folks are spending more time consuming app content, and revenue is growing, and mobile really means business. So let's dive a little deeper into mobile app revenue. As you can see on this chart, the combined worldwide revenue from mobile app store and mobile in-app advertising reached almost $70 billion in 2015 and grew by 27% to roughly $88 billion in revenue in 2016. This chart also shows that in-app advertising and net-to-publisher app store revenue is expected to more than double by 2020, reaching $189 billion. So there are no signs of mobile revenue growth slowing down anytime soon. Another compelling stat that I've been following is mobile usage worldwide. And according to StatCounter, the independent web analytics company, for those of you who don't know, in October of last year, internet usage by mobile and tablet devices has finally exceeded desktop worldwide for the first time. And StatCounter also found in their report that the maturity of the market impacts the dominant means of access. So what does that mean? Mobile platforms are by far the more popular means of internet access in emerging markets like India, where mobile accounts for 75% of internet use. But while developed markets like the US and the UK still see higher use of desktop, we are seeing that trend narrowing. And this news isn't the first time we've seen a milestone in mobile usage. If you recall, around 2 years ago, you may have read a report in ComScore around April of 2015 that reported the number of mobile-only internet users now exceeds desktop-only users in the U.S. And shortly after, in May of 2015, Google confirmed that more searches are conducted on mobile than on desktop. So it's already no surprise that mobile is becoming the dominant platform for accessing and transacting on the internet. And we expect to see continued revenue growth as mobile expands businesses into new markets and helps businesses acquire new customers around the world. And there are several other trends impacting the way users interact with mobile apps. We know mobile usage is growing. We already talked about that. And more people are coming online via mobile every year. And more of those people are coming online via mobile in more countries, particularly developing countries where mobile first is the norm. And we are also seeing that the bar for the mobile user experience is rising. With more competition comes the expectation for better user experiences. And users of mobile apps are demanding even more seamless experiences supported by content that exists both inside and outside the app environment. So what does that mean exactly? Well, think about an app that you use regularly, maybe for booking a ride like Uber, planning a trip like TripAdvisor or something. So consider all the content supporting the 1 or 2 click transactions that you make in the app. Does your app send you text messages confirming a booked ride? Is there support content providing you with customer care notices after purchasing a plane ticket? Are there marketing emails, push notifications, maybe promoting an additional coupon for your next purchase? These are just a few of the many types of content that support and enhance mobile apps. And more importantly, they provide mobile users with deeper experiences. And this slide here lists just a few of the many content types that I could think of that are probably already supporting most of the apps that you're using every day. And so you really begin to realize the nuance and depth that mobile experiences are delivering to users with content at different touch points in their customer journey. So now that you have more people using your app around the world in more countries, demanding more content to support better user experiences, so what comes next for your app? Well, the next step is to consider localizing your app as a means to unlocking global revenue. So many of you already know what localization is, but for those who don't, let's refresh that a little bit. So localization is the process of adapting your content for different regions, countries, or locales. And it does involve translation of content, but it also goes beyond that. It's also about adjusting all the elements of the content so that it can appeal to the cultural preferences of a local audience. So we'll talk a little bit more about localization later. I'm going to give you one last stat. I promise it's the last one. So according to a market research firm, Common Sense Advisory, 75% of buyers agree or strongly agree that when given the choice of 2 products, they are more likely to buy the one with information in their own language. So quite simply put, content localization is a competitive advantage for your mobile app, and it's an opportunity to grow your global business. But app localization can be tricky. There is a growing amount of content supporting your app, and that requires translation. So it's not always easy to figure out where to start or how to start with your app localization. So we've put together for you today 5 best practices so you can start taking advantage of the global content opportunity with your mobile app. So number 1, create your localization strategy and roadmap. So like for any new business opportunity, be sure to define your goals. If you want to market your mobile app globally, consider your user base and potential revenue from each target market in order to identify and prioritize languages in which to localize your app. So start with the data you already have and look at your current app analytics to see where there might be opportunities for quick wins. So is there a market or country where you see a lot of downloads of your app or usage of your app, but not a lot of transactions? Perhaps localizing some of your content in that language can help boost your conversion rates. So be sure to create a go-to-market plan for each language and target market and map your plans back to your goals to make sure you keep business outcomes at the forefront. So number 2, always put your user at the center of your localization strategy. So you built your app experience around the user, right? So same goes with localizing your app. The more people around the world who can access your mobile content, the bigger your potential market. And we saw earlier some stats that showed users are spending more time in-app and are consuming more content. So you'll want to translate your content for these folks, but even translation isn't enough, as I mentioned before. So you'll need to pay attention to how localization might impact the user interface and mobile design for different regions. Once you've selected the countries or regions to localize for, adapt your app to cultural norms to enable a truly native experience for your user base in that region or market. So remember to localize key aspects of your app, like dates, currencies, measures, and times, all of which can vary around the world. You know that here in the States and in the UK, we tend to use the imperial unit system, but most of mainland Europe and South America use the metric system. So keep those things in mind. So tip number 3, leverage translation technology and specialized tools. So this one's a crucial one. A translation management tool can facilitate rapid and accurate translation, whether the work is done by an internal translator or outside translation agencies. And a robust translation management platform like SmartLings can help improve localization efficiency by streamlining the manual processes involved in the translation of app content. And we've seen a reduction in manual work by up to 90% for some of our customers. So there are other parts of the technology suite that can also assist with the import and delivery of translated content. So these include proxy solutions or platform connectors for popular content management systems, and we have ones for Salesforce Commerce Cloud, Marketo, Adobe Experience Manager, and several others, and additionally also APIs. And all of these tools can seamlessly connect with your existing tech stack. And there are also over-the-air services available, like SmartLings Mobile Delivery Network, that delivers updated translations directly to end users' mobile devices without having to update the app's core code. And so these types of tools and other features will accelerate your time to market and lower overall translation costs. So be sure to do your research on translation software as you're putting together your localization strategy. And you can find more info on our website at smartling.com. Number 4, prioritize your content for translation. So at SmartLing, we believe that content is king, but we also believe that not all content is created equal. Some content is more important than other content. So for example, a checkout button or a primary navigation button will probably be more important to translate into multiple languages than your blog archives from 4 years ago. So if you have a limited budget for translation and localization, which most businesses do, then prioritize your content and start by translating the minimum amount of content needed to provide that seamless experience for your user in their language. Over time, as proof of concept becomes clear, you can make a business case to increase your budget and translate the rest of the content or launch into additional languages. And finally, use data to drive outcomes and find new opportunities. So as you probably guessed, localization doesn't end with the launch. Make sure you're gathering analytics to capture localization success and benefits and analyze those metrics regionally and by locale to find the biggest opportunities for future localization efforts. So as you assess and evaluate the data, drill down into the anomalies because that's where the interesting stuff is happening. If your app is receiving more traction in Germany than France, look into why the KPIs might be more successful for one language or region than the other. Compare and investigate to see how you can optimize across all locales or use the data to help uncover new markets so you can expand your localization strategy. So visit smartling.com for more resources on app localization and also for more information on our mobile delivery network as well as our general translation solution. These were just 5 of our tips and tricks, but we have several more on our website. So thank you very much.
We have about 15 minutes left for questions, so let's move right into those. The question here is, how do you choose how many languages to start localizing with? Is there a certain number of languages you recommend?
Great. So first, I'd go back to the first best practice of creating your localization strategy and roadmap. So in that, you'll want to define those goals, but also more importantly, you'll want to consider your budget. So if you have a tight budget, and most of us do, plan your strategy around translating content, I would say, for 1 or 2 languages instead of going out the gate with 15 or 150. And this can help you with the proof of concept. And when you start showing the payback to your stakeholders, it will also help make the case for expanding into additional languages and markets. So I would also say if this is the first time you're localizing your app and your business is still scaling, starting small can set you up for success, and you can go from there. But again, it really depends on what your goals are, because if you are trying to spread like a virus and be out in 150 languages, then you really have to think about your resourcing for that.
So with that in mind, our next question for you is, how much does it cost to translate your mobile app, and what kind of budget do you need to set aside for app localization?
Great. Yeah, that does dovetail nicely. So cost does vary considerably, and it does depend on how much content you ultimately want to translate, as well as how many languages you're looking to translate into. So translation into different languages varies, and some languages are more expensive than others. And typically, per word costs will vary between around 15 cents to 30 cents, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little less, but typically fall in that range. So SmartLing does offer language services with some big discounts depending on your translation volume. And also keep in mind that using that and coupling translation services with a translation tool can also help reduce costs and remove some of the manual efforts and resources needed to manage the app localization process.